My graphite artist's soul lights up every time a pencil claims to be the darkest and most intense on the market. Let's be honest, we are all searching for that magical pencil that won't shine in contact with light and can deliver some seriously strong contrast. It sounds too good to be true, right? Well, let's find out if this dream will be shattered or if it will become a reality. I will also create a drawing using only this pencil to test it from all aspects. This pencil can be bought either in a set or individually. I paid around $2 for it, which is pretty reasonable. What makes this pencil unique? This pencil claims to have the strongest pigment of all graphite pencils and doesn't shine when the light hits it, making it extremely matte. While graphite is a fantastic art medium, it can shine at the wrong light angle, fading the contrast. This can make it challenging to film and photograph as well. The Faber-Castell Pit Graphite Matte 14 promises to solve this problem. Why 14B is special? This 14B pencil is definitely pushing boundaries. Most of us are used to the standard range of graphite pencils, from the harder 2H to the softer 8B, but a 14B, now that's something you don't see every day. It's like stepping into uncharted territory for graphite lovers. We are used to 8B being pretty dark, but 14B promises to be on a whole other level of richness and depth. It's exciting to see how far I can take shading and contrast with something this intense. Comparison with other very dark pencils. Because I'm obsessed with strong contrast, of course, I've got a few tricks up my sleeve when it comes to achieving it, but I've never had a 14B pencil before, which is very exciting. Let's see what the difference is between this 14B and the two pencils that have helped me create amazing contrast so far. I'm talking about the Faber-Castell Polychromos Black Pencil and the Staedtler Mars Lumograph Black 8B. I've noticed that Polychromos is a bit creamier than the other two. It glides more smoothly on paper. The other two are quite similar in texture, both having a harder feel, and at first touch on the paper, it almost feels like they might scratch it, but it is just a feeling, and you get used to it after a while. This is likely due to their composition being different from Polychromos. I think they may contain some carbon in their formulation, which makes them a bit harder. As for the intensity of the black, from this angle, they all look about the same, though Polychromos appears slightly less intense. But will they remain so intense when I change the angle? To my surprise, I didn't expect the Faber-Castell Pit Graphite Matte to shine when exposed to light, especially since its description suggested it wouldn't have this issue. It says, high quality, extremely matte graphite pencil. These pencils have an ultra matte graphite layout to reduce reflection on paper. Of course, it doesn't claim to be completely matte. It says it reduces light reflection. Still, it's clear that there's quite a bit of reflection, which was a bit disappointing. But I don't want to jump to conclusions, as I still have more tests to run with this pencil. As they say, don't judge a book by its cover. The Staedtler pencil, on the other hand, shows no reflection whatsoever, which is why it's my favorite when it comes to contrast. I believe it has a different composition compared to the Faber-Castell, likely containing carbon in the core, which Faber-Castell most likely doesn't. I think they aimed to keep the core primarily graphite. Finally, I have arrived at the part of the video where I get to actually play with the pencil and see what it can do. I want to start layering it to see just how intense I can go with this 14B pencil. Everything went very well. I managed to layer it without any issues and achieved a good result smoothly. I didn't want to press down too hard to cover all the paper texture, as it would have turned into a swatch rather than layering. I just wanted to apply a few layers to see how dark it could get with only about 3 or 4 layers, and I wasn't disappointed. The result was excellent. I'm sure that if I had added even more layers, it would have become even more intense. Now I've got to try it out for shading to really see how far I can push it and find out just how much depth and intensity it can deliver. Shading with this pencil went really well. The pigment applied smoothly and blended easily into the paper. It didn't take much effort to get the transitions to look soft and natural, which is exactly what I was hoping for. The shading came out even and consistent with no harsh lines, making it perfect for creating those subtle gradations. Overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let's test how it blends using a blending stump. Graphite this dark can sometimes be tricky to blend. I am curious how smooth I can get the transitions and if it holds up to blending without losing that matte effect. It was very easy to blend with. The pigment smudged quickly and blended effortlessly into the paper's texture using a blending stump. This is exactly what I look for in a pencil among other qualities. To be easy to shade with, as this is essential for creating realistic effects. Everything needs to be smooth to achieve those seamless transitions, especially when drawing skin. However, you do need to be mindful of the pressure applied to the pencil. If the pressure isn't consistent, you may end up with darker spots or marks. This happens because pressing harder in certain areas pushes the pigment deeper into the paper's texture than intended, resulting in those unwanted marks. Unfortunately, from some angles, it still shined in contact with light. The 14B is super dark, but how resistant is it to smudging? We all know how messy dark pencils can get. I expected it to smudge a lot more than it did. I pressed pretty hard with my finger to get as much smudge as possible, and while it did smudge a bit, not much pigment actually transferred onto my finger. I think this happened because I used the blending stump first, so a lot of the pigment had already settled into the paper's texture and stuck to the stump. This left less pigment on the surface, which made my finger not get as dirty with pigment. I went ahead and did a light to dark gradient with the Faber-Castell Graphite Matte 14B, and let me just say, wow, starting light was surprisingly easy. Even though it's a 14B, it didn't feel too heavy or difficult to control for those softer areas. As I built up the pressure, the graphite got noticeably richer and darker without any annoying shine. It really delivered that deep matte black it promised. The transition was smooth, but I did have to be a bit careful not to overlayer in the light areas. This pencil can get intense fast. Honestly, it gave me one of the most satisfying dark to light gradients I've ever done. Dark graphite pencils can be tough to erase. Let's see how well the 14B handles erasing. I will use a kneaded eraser, a regular eraser, and a precision eraser. Erasing it with a kneaded eraser took a bit longer because it picks up the pigment more slowly and needs multiple passes, but it worked incredibly well. It lifted the pigment effortlessly and I had precise control over exactly where I was erasing. I didn't need to press hard at all, just a light touch, and it was gone. It was perfect for softening or correcting small areas. Erasing it with a regular eraser went surprisingly smoothly and fast. The pigment lifted off the paper almost immediately, making cleanup easy. I didn't have to go over the same spot multiple times, just a few quick passes, and it was gone. Honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better result with just a basic eraser. Using a precision eraser made erasing a success as well. The pigment came off right away and I could clean up small areas without messing up the rest of the shading. Just a couple of light strokes and it erased perfectly. It worked better than I expected for detailed work. I decided to do a demo of a ladybug illustration to really test the depth and intensity of the Faber-Castell Graphite Matte 14B to see just how well it could achieve those rich, dark blacks without creating any unwanted shine. I wanted to see if this pencil could handle deep shadow areas and still keep everything looking smooth and well blended, especially since the 14B is on the softer, darker side of graphite. As I started shading, I was impressed by how easily the pencil moved over the paper, making it easy to go from light, subtle tones to those deep, bold blacks. Surprisingly, even though it's a 14B, it didn't feel overly heavy or tough to control in the lighter areas, which made building up contrast very natural. The transitions were smooth, and I loved seeing how the intensity built up with just a few layers. However, I did have to be careful not to overlayer in the lighter areas, as it's easy for this pencil to get quite intense and dark if you're not paying attention. One unexpected challenge, though, was dealing with a bit of shine when viewing the drawing from certain angles. Even though the graphite matte is advertised as having a matte finish to reduce reflection, it still has a bit of a shine in the darkest areas. This made filming a little tricky, as I had to adjust the lighting multiple times to avoid fading out the contrast that I was trying to showcase. Finding the right lighting was definitely a balancing act, as I wanted to capture the true depth of the pencil's tone without losing any of that rich darkness in the highlights. A plus was how well the 14B sharpened. I was able to get a nice, fine point, which turned out to be perfect for capturing all the tiny details, like the delicate white areas of the ladybug and the fine lines on the legs and spots. Unfortunately, I forgot to film this part, but the sharp point held up quite well, which was a big plus for detailed work. It's clear that this pencil isn't just good for broad shading, but also for precise, fine details that need a high level of control. Overall, the Faber-Castell Graphite Matte 14B is a fantastic pencil, delivering rich, dark tones and smooth transitions that are perfect for high contrast drawings. Despite the bit of shine from certain angles, it still performed incredibly well, giving me the depth I wanted for this piece. The combination of smooth blending, deep intensity, and the ability to keep a fine point makes it a great choice for both large, shaded areas and detailed work alike. This demo definitely gave me confidence in its range and versatility, even if it doesn't stay completely matte under every light angle. So, is the Faber-Castell 14B worth adding to your collection? As you can see, it delivers rich blacks, smooth transitions, and a sharp point for fine details. While there's a bit of shine from certain angles, it still performs excellently for high contrast work like this ladybug drawing. If you're looking for a pencil with great shading and control, this one's definitely worth trying. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tutorials. See you next time.